Welcome back to Print Shift. We are modifying Prusa Minis here. This is a mod that you can add to any Mini. I'm going to install and evaluate the Orbiter Extruder. This is an extruder with very large dual drive gears that are hardened. The reason it's called the Orbiter is because inside here we've got a planetary gear reduction. It's an extremely light extruder, and for that reason we're going to install it as a direct drive mount upgrade to the Prusa Mini. Now, the main reason we're doing this, Print Shift platform is working on conveyor belts to eject parts from your Prusa Mini. So the more reliable the Mini is, the better it can eject parts. We've already done a video on the Bontex extruder upgrade where they're doing a dual drive to drop-in replace the stock Prusa Mini extruder. This is not a drop-in replacement. I did design a mount for it myself. Not fully tested, but it's been gone through a few paces, so I think we'll be alright getting around there. One of the nice things on the Orbiter is that it turns in the same direction as the original Mini, so it is simply a matter of plugging this guy in. I did recrimp the ends so that it has a nice locking connector on there. Always make sure you do not plug in extruders or stepper motors while the machine is on. So that's going to be mounted right there. The original part, this is an older Mini. I think they've switched the design up. You have this little fan mount, fan spacer. Pop the fan out, get better airflow. So what I've done is replicate that part and add a mount for the Orbiter on top. We're holding it on from both sides. Did a previous video where I show the design of a previous version. Yeah, didn't go as well. I've added a little meat on it, changed the print orientation. I've added this guy just as a little zip tie mount to hold the wiring bundle on. Not as nice as Prusa's, but should do. In order to keep this as small and tight as possible, the mount itself is using flathead screws. They're 10mm long and just barely long enough. This is to clear the fan. So we're not actually changing the location of the fan or, crucially, the Pinda probe. To get the Orbiter to work, you will need to update the steps per millimeter. This can be done in the start of your G-code. Unfortunately, the current firmware for the Prusa does not allow you to set it in the EEPROM. I'm not sure if that'll change back, or if it's a decision to limit support calls to Prusa. Using some thin square nuts, just because that's what I got lying around. Any M3 nut will do. Looks pretty good. The main thing is I'm using a short piece of Capricorn tubing. It's a filament guide. I've shaved one end, and it needs to be cut to length very precisely. So that guy pops in, as this guy pops on. Pretty good fit. I am happy with that. Now this is the second try of installing the part. I did already have a 3D model of the Orbiter and of the Mini, so it's perhaps not the most impressive design, but still. There we go. Pretty rough working on the Mini because it's been engineered extremely high degree. Like if you just look at the clearances between here, it's less than 1 millimeter. Can we get all the way back in? Yes, we can. The mount clears all the existing parts, just barely. Make sure that guy's mounted on. That is nice and secure. Clearly learned my lesson from the previous. One thing to note on the Orbiter, claims that you can produce 10 kilograms of extrusion force, whereas I designed my mount to hold the maybe 300 grams of the motor itself. Just because it doesn't weigh a lot doesn't mean it doesn't produce a lot of torque. Alright, I'm going to tie this up. We will fire up some prints. Let's take a look at that mount. So we still have clearance. I don't have my zip ties handy, but I will tie the wires in place. They'll just go right in front of the fan. Call that good. So we're holding the extruder, the Orbiter from both sides, nice and tightly. Bowden tube is firmly clamped in place. I'm a little worried about the design of the filament path on the Orbiter. I'm not sure that this machine will be capable of printing TPU. I really can't see much in there though, can I? There's a little larger gap in there that I'm really quite happy with. But we won't know till we test, and that's up next. This is not the first print, but I wanted to show off the initial layers. You do have to adjust the linear advanced for this since it's a direct drive instead of a Bowden tube, but we get very beautiful prints. These are actually programming for a music box, planning to build into a kinetic sculpture. And it does work, which is just really pleasant that we were able to print
such thin material so well. Nice and smooth, very happy with the performance of the extruder in PETG.
Loading in some extremely flexible TPU to test the orbit extruder. Looking like a champ. Gonna queue up a few long prints in this guy. We'll set a record going for a time lapse. A little skip on that one there. But we're still coming. Nice. I'll set you guys up for a time lapse. And we have first jam. Just doing a long extrude, but see if we can see what's going on inside. You can see in there the TPU is trying its best to get into the little side hole. There's too large of a gap between the rollers and the TPU itself. You can sometimes get around this by printing lower, because then there'll be less opportunity for that gap to fill in. So I was trying to clear the jam, thought maybe I should record that, but it's in there extremely well. The impressive amount of force that the orbiter is extruding has jammed that in there really well.
I turned the extruder on in reverse to try and help me pull the jam out, so spare the clicking, we'll just go over it. This is a very flexible TPU, but it's jammed in there so well. Very impressed by the amount of force that the orbiter is generating.
So we're cleared. Still gonna try a test print with this guy, I'm just gonna run it quite slow.
Unfortunately, as predicted, the orbiter has too large of a filament path to reliably print TPU. Still running this as the test print, might as well follow it through. So running at 50% speed to start. When I put on the little white puck, that increased to 75% speed and caused failure. The orbiter seems like an unfinished design. It's very good extrusion force, very nice motor on there, but the mounting system leaves something to be desired. This is the version 1.5, it's just a 4mm bore, so I'm clamping a PTFE tube between the extruder and the nozzle, and the filament path needs a good bit of work. Thanks for watching, happy printing.